So what if the world's biggest superpower was walking right into a predicted catastrophic defeat? That's what we're digging into today. We're unpacking a really provocative theory that claims a very specific kind of war could bring a global empire to its knees. Let's get into it. Right off the bat, here's the core claim from our source material. It's attributed to a game theory expert they call Professor Sane, and it's a shocker that in a conflict with Iran, the United States will be, and I quote, badly defeated. Now, your first reaction is probably the same as mine. How is that even possible? It sounds completely nuts, right? And this is the central puzzle we're going to piece together today. How could a weapon that costs less than a new video game console possibly pose a real threat to the most advanced, most expensive military machine in the history of the world? Okay, so to really get this, we have to start at the beginning. Where in the world does a prediction this bold even come from? We'll see the source material tries to build the credibility of this Professor Sane by pointing to a track record. It says he first predicted Donald Trump's election win, correct. Then it says he predicted that a major US-Iran conflict would kick off, correct again. And that sets the stage for the third and, let's be honest, the most unbelievable prediction, that the US will lose. So let's just go with this for a second. If we accept the premise, how would this defeat actually play out? Well, that brings us to what the source calls Iran's asymmetric master plan, a strategy that's all about not playing by the traditional rules of war. And according to this analysis, this is anything but a new development. It's described as the final war, something Iran has allegedly been planning and preparing for over 20 years, always seeing the United States as the final boss, so to speak. And here's the absolute key to the whole strategy. Iran itself tries to stay out of the fight. Instead, the source claims it activates this huge network of proxy forces. You know, we're talking about the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Palestine, and all these other militant groups across Iraq and Syria. And this is the most crucial part to understand. The goal isn't to sink an aircraft carrier or shoot down a stealth bomber. The whole strategy is to just bypass the US military altogether. The real target? It's the economic lifelines of America's key allies in the region, like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. You hit their critical energy and water infrastructure, and you hit the entire system. And the weapon of choice to pull off this devastating economic attack? According to the source, it can cost as little as this: $200. And this is where that tiny price tag becomes absolutely terrifying. The source gives this one chilling example. A single, cheap drone hits a water desalination plant. For these countries that get most of their fresh water this way, a major city of 10 million people could be out of drinking water in just 2 weeks. It's a tiny investment for a truly catastrophic result. But see, these physical attacks, as bad as they are, aren't even the end goal. They're just the trigger for what the source calls the petrodollar bomb, a direct shot at the entire US financial system. So what on earth is the petrodollar system? Well, it's actually pretty simple, but incredibly powerful. It's basically this long-standing deal where the big oil-producing Gulf nations agree to sell their oil only in US dollars. That means any country that needs oil, which is basically every country, has to buy US dollars first. That creates this huge, constant artificial demand for the dollar that keeps it strong. And the theory says this is how you start a terrifying economic chain reaction. Step 1. The proxy attacks make it hard for Gulf nations to sell their oil. Step 2. Their economies start to crumble. But here's the critical step number 3. They stop investing all those oil profits, those petrodollars, back into U.S. markets. The source claims that the U.S. stock market, and especially its current AI bubble, is so dependent on that foreign money that the second it stops flowing, the whole thing bursts. And that could trigger a full-blown collapse of the U.S. economy. To put it in the most blunt terms possible, the source material goes so far as to describe the modern U.S. economy as a financial Ponzi scheme, arguing that it's dangerously reliant on this constant flood of foreign cash just to stay standing. But this brings up a huge question, right? Why can't the most powerful military on Earth just stop these cheap drones? Well, the theory argues it's because the U.S. military is built to fight a completely different kind of war. Just look at this breakdown. On one side, you've got the US military basically running on a Cold War playbook. It's all about these super expensive, super complex, high-tech weapons designed to go head-to-head with another superpower. On the other side, you've got asymmetric warfare, using cheap, simple, and tons of weapons to hit economic weak points, not military ones. It's a total mismatch. And this chart right here just makes the math problem painfully obvious. The source says that to shoot down a drone that costs maybe $50,000, the US might fire an interceptor missile that costs $2 million. You just can't win a war of attrition when the exchange rate is that bad. The source uses a perfect analogy for this. It's like using a train to stop a car. Yeah, you'll definitely stop the car, but you're going to run out of trains real fast. The US is reportedly burning through its expensive missile supply at a rate that's just, well, it's not sustainable. So you have to wonder, if your top generals are reportedly warning that this is a bad idea, why would a US president go ahead with it? The source material we're looking at offers a few provocative possibilities. The source lays out 3 potential reasons here, and they range from the kind of stuff you'd expect to hear to something much, much weirder. First, plain old overconfidence. Second, personal and political gain, pointing to alleged lobbying from regional allies. And then there's the third one, which the source spends a lot of time on. The idea that this is all part of a hidden agenda, a spiritual script. Now, this hidden agenda theory gets really specific, and I have to stress this is all coming directly from the source material. It names 3 groups it claims are pulling the strings. First, the Jesuits, who it alleges run the Vatican. Second, a group called the Subversion Frankists, who the source says hold power in Israel. And third, the Freemasons, who it alleges control the US national security world. The core claim here is that these groups all believe in a kind of end times prophecy that requires a massive war, and they're pushing for it no matter what the consequences are.
And all of this, the drones, the dollars, the secret societies, it all leads us to this final, deeply unsettling paradox at the very heart of this entire theory.
Here's what it comes down to. The source argues that even if the US military achieves every single one of its goals on the battlefield, the economic shockwave from killing the petrodollar system and triggering a financial collapse at home would be a catastrophic, irreversible defeat. So it leaves us with a fundamental question for the 21st century. Can you win all the battles and still completely lose the war?